When Madhu thinks she loves her enough, Bree's such naughty and caring lines take her down. Her heart melts, her love and respect for Bree multiply. She feels like loving her more, but as always, Madhu blushed in her arms, resting her forehead in her chest. Looking at the nervousness of Madhu, well, it is hard to resist you. Yet I can resist, wifey, Bree said, holding her waist, kissing her head. Madhu sensed her kiss and sighed in her arms, blushing. And what if I say, I cannot resist you now? Madhu bit her lips, whispering in her arms, hiding her face in the collar of Bree. Bree got surprised. She held her face up. Holding her chin, Madhu hid her face again with her palms. Bree took her hands off her face with a smile and said, In that case, I would be the happiest person on earth tonight. She winked. Madhu shyly looked down. Caressing her face, pushing her hair back behind her ears, Bree kissed her forehead, then cheeks, then her lips. Madhu embraced her arms around Bree's neck and kissed her back. After a long kiss, Bree slowly took off the jacket of Madhu. Shy Madhu trembled, staring at the floor. Bree raised her face, holding her chin, and whispered, Are you okay? Madhu nodded with yes. I am just nervous, she whispered, scratching her nose, looking down, blushing. Bree kept her jacket on the seat and held her hand. I understand. I am nervous too, as it is my first time with you. I desperately want to make love to you, but I can stop if you are not ready, Bree muttered, kissing her hand. Madhu blushed. She kissed her hands back and held her cheeks, rolled her fingers on Bree's face, pushing her hair swirls behind her ears. She whispered, Bree, you made me crazy in your love. I am ready, 'cause I am all yours, now and forever. Madhu held Bree's jacket and pulled her close and kissed her. Bree kissed her intensely, leaning Madhu to the wall behind her, pressing her waist. Madhu kissed her neck and took off Bree's jacket in those intense kisses. Bree whispered, Oh honey, you are so soft and tempting. I love your scent and your touch. I am going crazy for you, wifey. Madhu blushed and pulled her back, holding her sweatshirt, and kissed her. Bree's eyes got wide open with that bold act of a shy wife. She was provoked and pressed her waist and slowly moved her hands inside Madhu's sweatshirt and opened the straps of her bra inside. Madhu's eyes got wide open with that. Before she acted, Bree kissed her lips more intensely, biting them. Madhu also involved in biting Bree's lips. Taking a chance, Bree pushed her on the bed while kissing her. She kissed her all over on the bed. Madhu got aroused whenever Bree kissed her neck. She whispered, You tempt me with this. And Bree looked at her, smiling, and kissed her back. There was intense kissing between them for a couple of minutes. In between, Madhu removed Bree's sweatshirt. Bree removed Madhu's sweatshirt and moved hands under Madhu's untied bra. Shy Madhu raised her hands towards the side lamp to switch off the light, but Bree held her hand and muttered, No, I want to see you. Madhu shyly looked on the other side and Bree kissed her cheeks and removed her bra. Lying on her, pressing her both hands with her hands on the bed, Bree kissed her all over. That night, the two souls united in the bliss of their love. The next morning, when Madhu opened her eyes, she was in the arms of Bree. On the flower bed, only bedsheets covered their bodies. They were asleep, cuddling each other all night after the long-lasting first love. The bed carried the scent and essence of their loving moments. She felt shy, remembering the last night, remembering every touch, kiss, caress, and their hours and hours of love. She was stunned, recalling those precious moments of her life. Every moment in last night was new and never before for her. Looking at Bree's innocent, cute face while asleep and rings in both their hands, she blushed again and again, thinking she was married now to the love of her life, to the most beautiful person from heart and soul. She caressed her cheek and face, pecked her cheek, forehead, lips, and stared at her until she woke up. Stretching her arms, Bree opened her eyes and saw her beautiful wife gazing at her. She smiled and whispered, "Good morning, my love." Madhu blushed and said, "Good morning, Munchkin." Bree gave a peck kiss on Madhu's lips and suddenly her phone rang. Bree answered the call and it was from the advisor. Madhu smiled at her busy wife. Pulling the other bedsheet on the bed, she got down from the bed and went inside the bathroom when Bree was busy talking on the phone. Bree observed her when she went inside, but she had to listen to the advisor who told her to meet after 2 hours in the head office. After disconnecting the call, Bree went inside the bathroom, which had 2 separate toilets and basins. After getting fresh, they both took shower together and cherished more romantic moments in the shower. They had breakfast by feeding each other in each other's arms. Bree finished her meeting and signed the deal. They both left from Vegas in the evening and reached Boston in the night. Bree called her mother and told her that she would be staying at Madhu's place that night. Nancy didn't say a word and disconnected her call after hearing her message. Charlie arrived at Madhu's apartment in the morning and gave a call to Bree. It was the college reopening day. Madhu and Bree got ready to go to the college from Madhu's home. Bree gave all the documents and her bags to Charlie and asked him to take them back home. Obeying her orders, Charlie dropped them both to the college and later went to the villa carrying Bree's stuff. Madhu was nervous in the college as she didn't want anybody to know about their sudden marriage. Before the holidays, she was not even in a relationship, and now she was married. She held the hand of Bree in the car. Bree gestured with her eyes to ease. Bree had already decided that she will come out to her mother later that day. During college, Bree didn't leave the hand of Madhu, and shy Madhu's cheeks went red all the time. Neil and other friends were coming after a few days to the college, so she was not worried to come out to anybody. But she insisted Bree to hide her wedding ring. Bree didn't bother about it, but she didn't want to make Madhu uncomfortable, so she agreed to hide her ring. They both put a bandage on their rings so that they could make some excuses if asked. After the college, Charlie arrived at the college gate to pick up Bree. She wasn't feeling to go away from Madhu. Bree asked her to stay with her at her house, but Madhu wasn't comfortable with that and she insisted Bree to go back home. Bree dropped Madhu at her home. Madhu got down from the car and walked inside her apartment without saying a word, gesturing by with her eyes. Bree understood that she was sad to see off her. Although they were meeting the next day, yet Bree was also not happy to see off her love like that. After crossing the lane, Bree asked Charlie to take a U-turn and stop near the apartment. Charlie said, "Miss, we need to reach home early as Mrs. Miller is waiting for you at home, and she asked me to drive you ASAP." "Okay, I will be back in 10, saying Bree got down from the car and ran to her love. Madhu saw Bree on the video doorbell and her heart jumped in happiness. Bree came to the door and Madhu opened it before she hit the bell. "You came back?" Madhu smiled with her eyes. "Of course," saying Bree hugged her immediately, and closing the door she kissed her passionately by leaning her to the wall near the door. Madhu also embraced her tightly. They spent minutes in kissing and hugging with no words. It was a delightful, love-filled embrace as if they met after years. "Come with me," Bree urged while kissing her neck. "No, I can't," Madhu moaned in her love. Bree knew that Madhu is very much a self-respected girl. She wouldn't come to her house like that. She also knew that Madhu wasn't ready to come out to anybody about their relationship. So she didn't force her for anything. And after a few minutes, she took a leave from her and drove back to her home. Nancy was waiting for Bree in the conference room of the house. Betty was also with her. Bree walked inside happily, expecting her mother's happiness for finalizing the deal. But to her surprise, Nancy looked upset and angry. Bree nodded at Betty, gesturing what went wrong. Upset Betty stood with her head down in an answer. Nancy looked at her angrily and placed some photographs on the table and asked, "Hope you tell me the truth." Bree saw those photographs. They were of her and Madhu's proposal photographs in the gondola. Bree now understood the secret of the photographer who clicked their pictures without their permission and didn't take money and vanished from that place. Bree was smart enough to make out that Tom and Lizzie have done that, as Nancy couldn't think of setting a detective for her daughter. She got angry on them. She sighed and said, The truth is, my stepbrother and stepsister has set up this photographer on my trip. Shall we not talk about them? And do you mind explaining this?" Nancy asked. "Of course. Those dumbass half-siblings of mine have given you the half news, Mother. Let me give you the full news. These are the pictures of my proposal to Madhu. After this, I married her. Here, my wedding ring," showing her finger by taking off the bandage. And wait, she opened her handbag and took off the pictures. To complete these pictures, these are my wedding pictures. Hope you enjoy watching them. Please ask those freaks as well to check these out. They must be standing outside the door. Nancy heard her shocking news. Looking at the pictures, Nancy threw all the pictures from the table and shouted, "Haven't you ashamed me enough already?" And crying, she sat on the floor. Betty held Nancy's shoulder to comfort her. Bree stood before her with no expressions but tears filled in her eyes. Pain filled in her heart, thinking, when will her mother understand her? "Mom, I don't want to explain anything, as I know you will not believe whatever I say. But trust me, I was about to come out to you today," saying Bree walked out from there. Nancy sat on the floor, upset, angry and crying. As expected, Bree saw Tom and Lizzie smiling on the door to overhear their conversation. Bree showed middle finger from both her hands to them and walked away. Lizzie and Tom got angry seeing her reaction. They were also shocked hearing that Bree married Madhu suddenly. They looked at each other with a cunning smile. All they wanted was to spoil Nancy and Bree's relationship so that they can gain their shares. Nancy had decided to make half of her shares in Bree's name and a half in the charity before Bree's departure when she got emotional for Bree. She shared her thoughts with her husband Glenn that night. In the meanwhile, this all happened on her trip and Nancy got upset on her again. Bree and Madhu spoke to each other in the night, and Bree didn't tell all about what happened in her house to Madhu, as she didn't wish her to worry about everything. The next day, Madhu went to college as usual, but the rumors of their marriage were spread everywhere in the college. When Madhu entered the class, most of their classmates made fun of Bree and Madhu. Their cartoons of being intimate were drawn by somebody on the board. Madhu couldn't take that embarrassment and she rushed to the washroom and started crying. Bree reached the college late that day. She called Madhu after entering the college, but Madhu locked herself in the washroom and wasn't taking any calls. Bree had no idea what happened in college. Her friends gave her the news and bumped hundreds of questions on her sudden marriage and relationship with Madhu. None of them ever imagined any such things about Bree, as everyone always thought Bree was a straight girl. Bree understood who spread that news in her college. She didn't answer anyone. She rushed to class in search of Madhu and saw the vulgar cartoon on the board. She wiped it instantly, as she knew that other than Joe, no one would do such a cheap act. She went to Joe, who was sitting in the back row, and stood before him tying her hands. "Hey Lesbo, do you need any help with my thing down under?" He mocked, making fun of her, and all his friends laughed. "Well, I'm proud to be a lesbian. It is better to be myself other than fucking a small dick, big asshole like you," she said, mocking. Joe got up in rage and she held her leg before him, hitting which he fell from the top row to the bottom. "So bad. You deserve to fall on the shit for your cheap acts, but you fell on the floor," saying Bree came down to insult him more. But before Jo acted, she thought of Madhu and ran out of the class, searching for her. One of her friends told her that she saw Madhu walking towards the washroom. Bree ran instantly hearing that. She opened the washroom door and couldn't find her anywhere. She tried her number once again and heard the ringtone from one of the toilets. She sighed and walked slowly towards that door and knocked on the door. Madhu didn't answer anything. "Madhu, are you in there?" Bree asked softly on the door. Hearing Bree's voice, Madhu raised her face while sitting on the closed toilet seat, crying. Abruptly, she opened the door, hugging Bree. She started crying aloud. Bree held her tightly and rubbed her back to console her. Seeing her love in pain, Bree's eyes filled with tears. Although Bree was strong enough to handle everything, she couldn't bear the pain of Madhu. She knew that Madhu was a very soft girl and never been in such situations. She didn't say anything other than soothing Madhu. Some of the other people were coming into the washroom, so Bree asked Madhu to walk with her outside. And she took her on the terrace of the university and hugged her and asked her to calm down. Madhu was still crying. Bree held her face in her hands and said, "Madhu, look at me." Madhu raised her face and hugged her, crying. "I know what was drawn on the board was embarrassing. But don't think too much about that shit and don't let it get to your heart. I am here with you. We didn't do anything wrong. We are in love, and if some assholes can't take it because of their cheap mindset, then it is their problem, not ours. Don't lose your heart for all of this, as they wanted to take revenge on me but did a big mistake by dragging you into this. I am gonna make them pay for this," she said, holding her face. Bree promised herself that she would not let Madhu cry anymore. Madhu stopped crying after a few minutes of consoling by Bree. She kept quiet for a while and then softly said, "Thanks." "Thanks? When did these formalities started in a marriage?" Bree mocked to comfort Madhu. Smiling, Madhu hugged her. Bree kissed her forehead and asked her to go with her into the class. They had already missed half of the first class. Madhu was scared to go inside the college from the terrace, but Bree told her that they should not lose their studies for cheap people. After entering the class, they saw the professor had almost finished her first period. Looking at Bree and Madhu, the lady professor asked them, "Thank you. You both thought of joining us. Would you both mind telling us why you were late to the class?" "Yes, Professor. Me and Madhu are in love and got married in this Thanksgiving holiday. And some of our classmates made fun of our relationship in a cheap way on the board today. And Madhu couldn't take that embarrassment, so I had to go with her to console her. I would like to take this chance and announce to everyone that we are married now, and hope no one in the class or college should have a problem with that and showcase their cheap art on us." Bree proudly announced her marriage, holding the hand of Madhu in front of the professor and the class. After a few seconds of shocking news, in which even Madhu was surprised and stood quiet, the professor clapped for both of them. Following the professor, all of the classmates clapped for them, except for Joe and his gang of friends. She walked inside the class holding the hand of Madhu, and Madhu followed her innocently, feeling proud of her love. While sitting, Bree stared angrily at Joe, who looked on the other side, feeling insulted. After the class, Bree held the hand of Madhu and walked towards her car. She dropped her till her door. While leaving, she caressed her face and kissed her forehead, comforting her. "Never get upset or embarrassed for things that happened today. I love you and I am there for you, always," she said. Madhu nodded and held her hand and said, "Bree, I am not embarrassed on our love. It was just all that drawing and laughing of students and their looks. I felt..." Madhu tried to explain, and Bree held her face from the other hand and said, "Shh. No need to explain anything. I know. Just give me one more day. I will sort this once and for all," she softly said, consoling her. "What are you going to do now?" Madhu asked, worrying about what else she is going to do. "I need to acknowledge the people who spread our wedding news in college. Previously, Joe's time, I ignored them. But this time they are gonna pay for this, she said and walked out without waiting for a second at Madhu's home.